Oh, yeah, a whole lot more Robert Williams talk, the meniscus tear. How are the Celtics going to navigate this? What lineups are they going to put out there? What's their approach? Daniel Theis, how much do you play him? When do you play him? We've got a new potential nickname for him. And does this impact Jayson Tatum's MVP candidacy? I'm going to tell you how right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Boston, baby, we do what you can't. Locked on number 18, Tatum and Brown, J-team, step back. We gon' wet that and slay teams. Of course, the Celtics, who else could it be? Screaming like KG with the Larry O.B. Karalis above average, assessing the team status. Best daily pod, no cap, salary matching. Clutch like Bird the DJ, keep John on replay. Prime time, dapping up the truth on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. B.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast. Thank you for making this show part of your daily routine, Monday through Friday, and your first listen every day. Pop this sucker on your phone, take it with you in the car now that you're going back to work, and listen on your ride. That's what this show is all about. Or pop it in the background on the YouTube channel. You can watch it. You can have it playing in the background, and people will never know. People will never know that you're being entertained with Celtic stuff in the background at work because no one wants to be there. They don't care what you're doing. I'm John Karalis. I cover the Boston Celtics for Boston Sports Journal. I've written a book called Boston Celtics All-Time All-Stars. Get that book anywhere books are sold online. Get a signed copy on my website, johnkaralis.com, for $30. It's a great gift. I was also one of the media voters for the 75th anniversary team. So I'm immersed in the Boston Celtics, and I am immersed in MCL. I'm sorry, not MCL here. God, no, not an MCL. I'm immersed in meniscus tears, which I've apparently not immersed enough because it just blew.
Yeah, you don't sound immersed at all, dog.
You don't sound immersed at all. I just, when your brain just hits the brakes and your thoughts go crashing through the windshield. That's what just happened to me.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Luckily, I will edit it out so it won't look nearly as bad.
Oh, come on.
No. Are you kidding me? But my fragile ego, I have to make sure that I edit all of this out. Well, let's talk meniscus tears with Tom Westerholm. Tom here, over here on my left, Tom _NBA and Boston.com. We're still not sure how long Rob is going to be gone. We've had a couple of days to process the possibilities here. I know at first people were like, well, there goes the season. I think people maybe can calm down now and say, all right, maybe the season isn't exactly over because they still have a couple of guys named Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown, but this hurts. What was your reaction? Where have you landed at this point?
Well, I mean, my initial reaction was like, things have been going a little too well for the Celtics, right? Like it felt like this was kind of charmed. And if there's one thing we know, it's that it doesn't feel like those things always last forever. So, not that you had not that you ever are obviously want to be kind of predicting that an injury is going to happen because they're so random. But at the same time, it didn't. I mean, everything had been going the Celtics' way for so long that felt a little unsustainable. That said, I guess where I've landed on it is a lot of what you were saying, where this team still has Jayson Tatum, still has Jaylen Brown. We just saw them with no starters play. Well, I mean, not no starters, but with like Marcus Smart and, a bunch of guys who come off the bench. We saw that team take the Toronto Raptors to overtime on the second night of a back-to-back because they were playing this, largely the same brand of basketball that the Celtics have been playing. I think that this certainly hurts their chances to be a championship team, to be a contender, whatever. But I don't think it eliminates them from that conversation. I think that they have enough big depth built up. They have enough, star power to maybe take a run at this thing anyway. So, I mean, we'll see. But I think when you look at the way they've been playing and the people who are still available, I certainly think they're still a tough team. I certainly think they're still going to be a really, really tough out in the Eastern Conference. And, I think when you have a superstar, like an ascendant superstar like Jayson Tatum, I think that gives you a puncher's chance against pretty much anybody.
I'm going to try something on the YouTube page here. I'm going to share a screen and see if people can see Let's see if this works. All right. Yeah. Okay. So this is from Dr. Jessica Flynn, who was a contributor. She's an orthopedic sports medicine doctor and contributor to Boston Sports Journal. I had a conversation with her. She had put this little nice, I like this graphic because it's so simple.
Yeah.
It's like, explain it to me like I'm 5. So
she did.
So she did. So the little pink areas, if you're watching on YouTube, this little pink area here, this is one of these is where Robert Williams tore something. And now what we're waiting for is what they're going to do. Are they going to sew this little meniscus back together, or are they going to cut a piece of it out and give it a resection? And what they do is they smooth it out and they make it so it's probably not going to tear again. But as you can see on the YouTube page, but I'll explain for the people who are listening, this meniscus sits between the two bones. And if you take enough of that meniscus away, then you get that bone-on-bone potential, and that's what we call arthritis, and no one wants that. And so what we're waiting on, I think, is the conversation between Rob, probably his agent, and probably the team, and probably his family, and everybody just saying, okay, here's if we see X, these are your courses of action. If, and they kind of formulate the plan. And as Dr. Flynn kind of explains on this page of hers, that if you try to repair it, that could be a 6-month recovery, 6 or more.
Yep.
Or if you trim it, you can be back within 3 to 6 weeks. So this is the tough spot because the competitor and Rob is probably sitting there like, yeah, just cut this thing out. I'll be back in 3 to 6 weeks. I'll be fine. And he might be.
Yeah.
So it's just tough because, and I will say I'm heartened by just the comments that I've seen. Most fans that I've talked to are like, you know what? Look, don't rush back just for the, if this is going to be a real serious issue that you're going to have to deal with for the rest of your life, don't really don't take that option just for the off chance that maybe you can make it to the finals.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to look at it for a bunch of different reasons. Number one, like you said, the human element of it, right? Where, a lot of guys, these injuries that they suffer, yeah, they go away during the course of their basketball career, but then there's like a lot of life left after the basketball career. And yeah, like,
yeah.
Yeah, like, and, like even comparatively short ones. And, the quality of life, your quality of life matters, so like you have to think about those things when you're young. Those of us who didn't, pay the price years later. So I think, like you said, I'm also encouraged that seems to be the fan reaction to it. I mean, I also think just from a basketball perspective, like Rob Williams, like think about the life of the contract, right? Like he's under contract. He signed an extension. Like his extension doesn't even kick in until next year. So like, that's 4 years where you want this guy to be healthy. And, you look at this team, the way they're constructed, there's no reason that if things are going well right now, if things, if like they've put something together, they seem to have figured some things out. Ime Udoka seems to have figured some things out where they could be pretty good for quite some time. And that matter, that this season to me, I don't know how fans feel about it. To me, this season kind of feels like found money because I did not think that they had this kind of run in them. Now, obviously, you never know what can happen in the future, and like championship windows can close very quickly. But at the same time, if it's a matter of like health, if it's a matter of extending Rob Williams' career, I think it makes sense both from just like a human perspective and from a team perspective, from a team building perspective. Look, you have Al Horford, who is 35 years old. Al Horford is playing very well this season. Who knows how good 36-year-old or 37-year-old Al Horford will be? At that point, you might really want to have a Rob Williams who has all of his meniscus. So, look, if I'm not a doctor, if people determine that he'll be fine, if they trim a little bit off, like, whatever. But at the same time, like, yeah, it makes a lot of sense to for Rob to like take care of himself now, both for himself and for the team in the future. I think it kind of connects nicely that way.
Yeah, it makes sense. And it does depend. There are so many different variables here that really only an orthopedic surgeon and the player and, his inner circle can come up with. Like that's up to them. It's not up to us. It's not even up to the team. It's not up to Ime or, the medical staff. And I would say even like an independent doctor, like a second opinion, someone who is just kind of fresh, takes a look at it and says, okay, yeah, this is where I would go with it. Maybe a minor tear, you can shave it off and be back in 3 to 6 weeks. And it won't be a significant increase in your risk for arthritis down the road. But it also makes the next, if there is a next thing that, a torn meniscus can happen to anybody.
Yep.
And if it happens again, you run the risk of, hey, let's, the next one, you're going to be out for a longer time. So you might get like, okay, here's your one, shave it down, be back in 4 weeks, and this is your one chance at this. The next one is going to be a long one if there is a next one. So,
right.
So we'll see. Basically what they're going to do is they'll make an incision. They'll stick a scope in there and they're going to figure out exactly how bad it is. And they'll probably make the decision on the spot based on the prior discussion. So we'll get into the impact here in just a moment and how we think the team is going to handle this and things that maybe we lineups and stuff like that they can go to. But first, let me talk to you about PrizePicks Daily Fantasy Made Easy. It's a really fun daily fantasy game. It's not like a lot of those other daily fantasy games that you might have heard about, where you're up against competition. You're picking against pros who have some complicated algorithm, and they're just basically ringers. You are playing against yourself. It's you against the numbers. You pick 2 to 5 players. You pick an over/under, and if you can pick those accurately, then you win. Very simple. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. Super easy. It's safe. You get fast withdrawals. Super easy to get your money. And you can get the award-winning app on the App Store or Google Play, so anybody can play this. And it offers any props that you can think of, and it crosses sports. So, baseball is coming back. You can get into, home runs for one guy and Jayson Tatum's assists, and you can go all over the place and mix and match to have some fun with all of the sports that you are interested in watching. For a limited time, PrizePicks has an exclusive no-brainer of an offer for all of our users. You get $50 for free if a player in your first PrizePick entry scores a single point, one single point, but you have to use the promo code NBA. This is an exclusive offer just for Locked On fans. Sign up today. Use the code NBA. $50 free. Very simple. And it's if a player in your first PrizePicks entry scores a single point. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. How about making Locked On NBA your second listen? I'm doing the Locked On NBA podcast for Wednesday. This is the Wednesday Locked On Celtics. I'm recording it before all of the games, and I will be talking about all of these games on the Locked On NBA podcast with Jake Madison of Locked On Pelicans. Some Pelicans news. Zion is traveling with the team. You got Bucks and Sixers. That's a big one for Celtics fans. So I will be talking about that on the Locked On NBA podcast. So check it out. I'm on that every Wednesdays with Jake. We got rotating hosts. It's everywhere podcasts exist. It's on YouTube as well. Search for Locked On NBA there. Let's bring Tom_NBA back in to let's get back into more of the Robert Williams discussion. We're waiting on this Wednesday night game with Miami to kind of get a sense of how they're going to play this. One question I have for you, Tom, do you think it's smart now, or do you think this impacts the rest plan for the team? Because I think whatever days off these guys are going to get, there might be a different kind of plan now. With Rob out, you need these guys playing with Theis as much as possible, even though Theis is back and he's been playing. Obviously, he's played with Tatum and Brown and these guys, but he hasn't played in this system.
Right.
And I think the priority of getting these guys a day off, considering that they're going to be in the top 4 somewhere and they're going to get that week off before the playoffs start, maybe it's just a better idea to let's just immerse them. Let's plug Daniel Theis in as the starter and let's see how much he can actually do as Rob's direct replacement. Just start him in there and let's see how much of that slack he can pick up just by playing with these guys, playing in that role and picking things up.
Well, I think that's an interesting that's an interesting take on it. I actually had the opposite one where I was like, hey, maybe you just like, start resting everybody all the time. Like, maybe not to the extent that they did, last night when we're recording this, but just kind of say throw it to the winds. You're pretty sure you're going to have home court advantage in the first round. Where you end up, but just kind of keep everybody healthy, kind of the rest of the way, because you can't afford to lose anybody else. As much as we said, I don't think that this is the end of the season. I don't think if you lose anybody else, I think you're in a lot of trouble. Especially any of those core guys. But yeah, it is really important to get Daniel Theis, up to speed. And there are promising signs, right? Like if you look at the on-off numbers right now, Daniel Theis is actually, if you do minimum 200 minutes, Daniel Theis, then Rob Williams was number 2. But if you cut that minimum out, or 200 possessions, if you cut that minimum out, Daniel Theis is number 2 in the Celtics on-off efficiency. So there are like positive signs that he's, adapting just fine. And, certainly there's matchups where he's going to struggle, I think, especially in the Eastern Conference. But, I could get behind that as a plan. Like I think, especially when you look at the improvement from Tristan Thompson to Al Horford, maybe the Daniel Theis double big could work out okay for everybody involved. I will say the other lineup that I'm really interested in is Derek White. If you put Derek White in and took Daniel Theis out, and then you have those 2 guards who are just demolishing everybody. You have your Tatum, your Jaylen, and your Horford. I mean, that to me that looks like the potential, like a potential closing lineup in the postseason. But either way, I mean, I think the Celtics are very lucky or very good at foresight if for having brought in Daniel Theis and Derek White and just kind of more adults in the room, with Rob going out.
Can you imagine having to rely on Ennis?
Oh my gosh.
In this situation?
Yes, I can, because we saw them have to do it in the past, and it was
not good.
Not good.
Not good. As much as he wants to crow on, wherever he wants to crow about his situation.
OAN.
Yeah, the having Enes Kanter, NSK Freedom on this team in this situation, just that I would have been like, all right, well, there we go. That if that was a situation, yeah. But being able to get Theis now actually works out very, very well. Yes. I really do think that there is some level of duplication that Theis can bring. He can be a lob threat. He just can't be the lob threat that Rob is, because that's just, he's elite at that. And Theis, you have to make sure that the lobs are a little bit more precise. I tweeted out a play that from Derek White that he tried to bounce pass to Theis when the play was obviously for a lob. And I think, and this is part of why I'm like, you can't rest everybody. You have to play everybody, because, Ime was talking about getting Derek White up to speed, and he has been slowly, but he hasn't been playing with Daniel Theis very much. And now you got to get those two together, because they're going to be playing on the same, at the same time a lot. And that's one play. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if in this Miami Heat game, you saw almost too many lobs to Daniel Theis as they go through film session on Tuesday. And it's like, don't be afraid to let Theis go get it, because he can go get it. He just can't go get it like Rob did. I compared it on Boston Sports Journal to store brand soda versus name brand soda. And like, so, you pop open cola and say, here you go. And people are like, oh, this isn't as good as what I want, but you drink it and you can put your rum in it and it's fine. It does the job. So Theis can still roam. And this is why I want to start him next to Al Horford, because I do think the obvious problem was Daniel Theis. I mean, what was not Daniel Theis last season was Tristan Thompson. So start him next to Al Horford, and let's see, can he roam? He could probably block shots as a roamer. He probably can't come over from as far out as Rob did, because Rob's elite at that. But you can have him play a little bit closer, and that doesn't give you everything that the Celtics have gotten, but also the Celtics have been blowing teams out. And maybe this just means, okay, instead of these 20-point leads, you have 10-point leads, which is still pretty good. And it could swing the confidence in the game. But I want to see if of that 100% of Robert Williams, how much does just starting Daniel Theis give you based on the system, based on the ball move, based on everything else? I think that's going to be a really interesting thing to watch, especially in this Miami game.
Did you ever have Hee Haw, the Mountain Dew knockoff?
No. Hee Haw?
I think that might have been
a Midwest thing.
I think it might have been because I think they sold them at like Hy-Vee, which I do not think is a thing out here.
I don't know what a Hy-Vee is.
Yeah,
that sounds like a diagnosis, not a store.
Hy-Vee is Midwest price chopper. So anyway, no, I was smiling when you said that because I just remembered Hee Haw.
Can we call Daniel Theis Hee Haw? That's what
I'm saying. I would love to start calling Daniel Theis Hee Haw or Mr. Pibb. But I think that was a little more uniform.
I would love to start calling Daniel Theis Mr. Pibb.
Yeah, okay. All right. Mr. Pibb was national, right? That was like a thing.
Mr. Pibb. Now, okay, so I do know what Mr. Pibb is.
Okay.
But I never had it. I don't think it made its way into like Rhode Island when I was growing up. I don't know about like Boston.
You know.
I know that I've heard of Mr. Pibb.
Okay. All right. So yeah, if you could start calling him Mr. Pibb or Hee Haw. Hee Haw is probably funnier. Mr. Pibb is probably a little. Hee Haw does. Hee Haw maybe not for like doesn't really describe Theis as well, I guess. But anyway, no, yeah, I have no qualms about anything. Hee Haw. I do think there is something to the fact though that like. Not only is Theis very competent, he was also the starting center on that team that went to the Eastern Conference Finals like 2 years ago. So, it's not like there is like a history of success with Daniel Theis playing, with a similar unit, obviously, with Kemba in there and, Tatum wasn't quite this Tatum, but yeah, it's, he has had demonstrated, Mr. Pibb has had demonstrated success with the Celtics. So, Not the worst thing.
I love it. Does Mr. Pibb still exist? Can I get them as a sponsor?
I mean, I have to imagine they're very available. Yeah,
I would like to think so.
Maybe not the most liquid, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, we can work something out here on the Locked On Celtics podcast. I mean, I'll work on that. First, I will tell you about Built Bar, which is definitely for real and definitely very delicious. And something that you should have. Mr. Pibb, unless they pay me to say so, I'm not going to say you should have Mr. Pibb. Just call Daniel Theis that. No, Built Bar is a great protein bar. I'm so glad that I got my delivery today. Double chocolate and salted caramel, which are great. The double chocolate is only 130 calories, but it's got 17 grams of protein in it, which, I spent 45 minutes on the treadmill trying to work off my fatty fats. And I know that when I have the Built Bar, I know it's not going to blow out what I just did on the treadmill. So it's a great after workout, gets you the protein that you need, that your body's muscles need to grow, and tastes great. It's like a little treat. I did my workout, I got a little treat. And they have all sorts of different flavors, and they're all approximately in that 130 to 170 calories. You're going to get that 17 grams of protein, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs. If you're on a keto diet, these work. If you got a nut allergy, there are certainly options for you. When you go to built.com, scroll over all the different flavors. You'll see the nutritional facts there, and you'll see if you like fruity stuff, they have that. If you like mint, if you like coconut, if you like chocolate, there's all of these different types of flavors that can appeal to every sense out there. So go check it out. And the best part is there's this promo code LOCKED15 I keep telling you about that you can use every single time. I use it myself when I go back and I order. I'm not getting these things for free. They're not like backing up a truck and shoving Built Bars through my window. I have to go buy them myself now. And I'm using the promo code LOCK15 just like you, and I use it every single time. So go sample, pick one, pick a mixed box, pick a Built Puff, whatever you want to try. And then when you find something that you like, you want to go stock up, LOCK15. It gets you 15% off every single time at Built.com. So starting Mr. Pibb makes sense, but the
I have several. Before you get into this, I have several Mr. Pibb related updates. If you're curious.
Oh, absolutely. Let's do it.
So Pibb, it looks like it has turned into Pibb Extra. You can get Mr. Pibb at any Walmart. I looked it up, and not that you should do that until they sponsor this podcast. But once they sponsor the podcast, you'll
give
be able
me money to say so. But
correct, yeah.
In the meantime,
until then, do not buy Mr. Pibb. It is crucial. The bad news is that Hee Haw no longer exists. It has been repackaged as Mountain Drive.
Wait a minute. It's Mountain Drive. Is it the same type of soda?
So it's a good thing you asked. Somebody tweeted at Hy-Vee asking what happens to Hee Haw is Mountain Drive. What's the difference between Hee Haw and Mountain Drive besides packaging and name? And Hy-Vee responded, no other difference. So Hy-Vee can get all the way out of here. Bring back Hee Haw, or I will never endorse them. But Mr. Pibb does exist and could sponsor this podcast. And once they do, everyone should go buy that and also call Daniel Theis Mr. Pibb.
I love the audacity of making a Mountain Dew knockoff Mountain Drive.
Doesn't even make sense.
It doesn't make any sense. It's just
not that Hee Haw was like, perfect logic or anything, but
it's just gaming the search engines. So when you do Mountain D, you do Mountain Drive. Maybe if you get the SEO up there, maybe people start buying that Mountain Drive.
I honestly, yeah, sure, but like they missed out by not really promoting Hee Haw during the social media era because that would have been great. I think it would have sold. So
if Zach LaVine is pushing Mountain Dew, what basketball player would be pushing Mountain Drive? DeAndre Jordan?
Javante?
Somebody that's like a knockoff. Yeah, like a knockoff, sort of, kind of, but not really. Like Jordan Clarkson.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, Mountain Drive, yeah. I mean, my son is instantly offended because for a while he glommed onto Jordan Clarkson as his favorite NBA player. But,
and instead of Charlie Day from It's Always Sunny, he would get Rickety Cricket to do the commercials.
Right.
So Rickety Cricket and Jordan Clarkson for Mountain Drive.
Previously Hee Haw.
All right, I'm in. We are making strides here. We haven't solved the meniscus thing or the lineup thing, but we are really making Mountain Drive strides here. I think this podcast is a success. Other lineups, though, you mentioned the one where you have Derek White, Marcus Smart. I think it's going to be a big one. The Derek White, Marcus Smart, and Jayson Tatum playing the 4. Or even, with so much switching, you're going to have like Tatum and Brown switching, and Al Horford's ability to switch is going to be a big deal as well. But I think that lineup is going to be a huge thing. You've got basically 3 options to me. You start Derek White and have that, or like you play Derek White in that lineup. You start Daniel Theis in that lineup that I talked about, and you have the Grant Williams at the 4 lineup. Like those 3 are going to be your main cogs for getting through however long you have to get through for the Robert Williams absence. And look, I'd rather have Rob, obviously. Let's be clear about this. But those 3 lineups, they're not horrible. Mm-hmm. And I think they can get through. They certainly can get through the rest of the regular season. I think they can get through the first round. And then we'll see. The second round might be matchup dependent, and we'll see if Rob can even come back. But I'm okay with those 3 lineups. I think you can bide your time with those 3 lineups.
I agree. I think that's where I think the Celtics really bought themselves some flexibility at the deadline that they needed. And also, again, like you said, like not enough. You can't say enough about the crucial improvements that Grant Williams has made. If you look up some of the stats on Grant, Jaylen, Jayson without Rob on the floor. I was looking these up yesterday. Plus 6.5 points per 100 possessions, outscoring teams by that's not like elite numbers, but it's quite good. It's 84th percentile. If you look at Derek White, Jaylen, Jayson, Grant, Horford, which is the biggest of those lineups or the most used, 117 possessions plus 16.1. So we're these are not like Rob going out is obviously a net negative. Like like you said, you want him in there. It does hurt the Celtics because one of the arguments for them being contenders was that their starting lineup was, by far the best in the league. Just demolishing teams. Without Rob, that's not the case anymore. But there are plenty of other options. And I guess, to your point about kind of playing these guys quite a bit and trying to like really hammer home getting Theis in there, there is still time for those other lineups to get more time together, to really figure out ways that Grant as the 4 and Horford as the 5 can emphasize Tatum and Jaylen and all the things that the Celtics try to do organizationally. So yeah, no, I think that I'm with you. I think that those 3 lineups in particular are great ways to kind of counteract what the Celtics are missing.
And I think this really, if there's one thing that we can point at is the most important thing, development of this season, it's that Jayson Tatum has learned how to draw these double teams, invite these double teams. He was challenged to make the rest of his teammates better. And this is where you need that the most. And honestly, we're going to see over the next couple of weeks how much of an impact that really has. Because Rob is Rob, and he's super athletic, and he goes up and catches everything that you throw up there. And he's done all of the stuff that he's done, and he's a first-team all-defense guy, probably for good reason. Now we get to see when you throw those double teams at Jayson Tatum and he's throwing the passes to Daniel Theis, how much does he raise Daniel Theis's game? How much attention can he draw? Can he throw those passes on point? Or can he start the ball moving to a point where Theis is still in that dunker spot where Rob is, and he can still go up and catch a lob? And maybe it's just that Daniel Theis catches it and lays it in, or lays it off the backboard, and it's not a spectacular alley-oop. And hey, 2 points is 2 points, and you're not going to get those crazy highlights. But as long as Tatum is drawing the guys, starting the ball movement, and the ball is finding the right guy, then we might see how much impact Tatum really has. Side note, if they keep rolling here and Tatum keeps doing what he's doing, and Theis comes in and steps up and just slides right in, if that happens, boy, is that a big boost to Jayson Tatum's MVP candidacy. If they just keep rolling along and people go, oh my God, maybe it wasn't that Rob is just doing all it's Tatum. Tatum is getting Daniel Theis to do a lot of the Rob stuff.
Yeah.
Then wow, I think there's a potential here. Side note too, Tatum's MVP candidacy takes a real jump if the Celtics don't miss a beat or barely miss a beat.
100%, because one of the arguments for Tatum's MVP candidacy, obviously he's putting up ridiculous numbers, but obviously one of the big arguments in his favor is how much better he's making his teammates this season, and how much better the team is as a result of him, not just like how well he's playing. So yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. I'm also curious for your thoughts on this. So yesterday, obviously we got kind of a look at some guys that we don't normally get a look at. Are you interested in seeing a little bit more Sam Hauser down the stretch? Because I'm a little interested. I just, mostly from a schematic perspective, just because I think that like shooting benefits, Tatum and Jaylen so much to have those floor spacing guys. Not saying like, start him or anything like that, but are you curious to see a little bit more of him down the stretch here? He feels kind of plug and play.
He's got the size.
Yep.
He's certainly got that shot. That is, by the way, the most feathery, soft, that's like he's like caressing the ball through the rim.
It still snaps the net very satisfying.
Yeah, it's just it's just
a beautiful jumper.
I don't know that I can't even compare that shot. It's so much arc to it. But yeah, I think this is an opportunity for somebody else to step up. And this is, in all of this, an opportunity for Ime to kind of maybe experiment with one or two of these guys, him or Nesmith, as like the added, hey, if you don't have Rob there as the threat that's going to keep guys honest, and if Daniel Theis doesn't just slide right in, because that's also a possibility, then you're going to have to figure out another way. And that means you're going to have to spread the floor with dangerous shooters. And so there may be a game, or it might be just a stretch that, hey, in the third quarter, we saw Daniel Theis in the first half play, 14 minutes. And okay, we got some good film on that. Let's just try this to start the third quarter, a different look to get film on this. Yep. And it's almost like you're back in November and you're kind of experimenting, which may mess with the wins and losses, but you may see some of that experimentation, just a couple of different groups where people are like, wait a minute, what's Ime doing? That's what he's doing. He's just getting film on different players to figure out, okay, where can I go with this if I need to break glass in case of emergency? So yeah, I do think that there's a case to be made for some more Sam Hauser down the stretch.
I also will say that you mentioned Aaron Nesmith. Him hitting that shot, I know they ended up losing anyway, but him hitting that shot at the end of regulation is a big.
That was big.
That like, not, you don't want to put too much on one play, but the fact that he's flying around, the fact that, that he gives all of this effort, and you can kind of, like, now you have at least a little bit of evidence that you can kind of trust him to make a shot, to make an open shot in a big moment. That's not an insignificant thing. That's progress and certainly an argument to give him some of those minutes that I was just talking about giving to Sam Hauser. But regardless, hey, multiple shooting options off the bench, that's never a bad thing.
Never a bad thing. So we'll see. Like I said, the Wednesday night game here against Miami will be very telling. And we'll see. We'll see how much Theis can slide in and how much these other guys get their opportunities. Tom Westerholm, Tom_NBA of Boston.com. Thanks for hopping on. Once again, appreciate you.
Appreciate you. Also, if people are going to follow my Twitter, like, if I say, like, I do not, like, oh, wow, I don't think the Celtics are going to beat the Raptors without Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Al Horford, I mean that literally, and obviously I know that Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Al Horford would probably be playing if they faced the Raptors in the playoffs. So just probably a little bit of common sense about when I'm probably joking. That's literally all I'm asking. My mentions have been swarmed all day. That's all. Thank you.
Common sense on Twitter.
It is literally a lot to ask. I'm aware.
You're probably going to get some hee-haw before you get some of that, Tom. All right, let's wrap this sucker up. Thank you, Tom. Thank you for watching and listening. Big game coming up against the Miami Heat. We'll be back after the Miami Heat game there. I'm sure there's going to be a lot to talk about, and I'm really looking forward to this. This might be the most excited I am for a game for a lot of different reasons, not just for like wins or losses, but all of the stuff we just talked about. I feel like we're going to get a lot of answers. So we're really going to dive into that after the game. So make sure you're subscribed to this show if you want to get it in your podcast form. It's wherever podcasts exist. Put whatever app you want on your phone. Take it with you in your car. Turn off the radio. Turn on the podcast as you drive to work. I know you're figuring out your commute and all that stuff. This is perfect for your ride to work. If you want to watch the show, pop it on in the morning while you're getting ready. When you get home and you're making dinner, or at the office, you can just watch the show on YouTube. That also works as well. Thank you to everybody who subscribed. Thank you to all of you subscribers who are sharing the podcast and telling everybody that they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast. It's right here on the Locked On Podcast Network.